Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the KrisAnne Hall Show. KrisAnne Hall here, KrisAnnehall.com, where we are liberty over security, principle over party, and truth over your favorite personality. So happy to have you here with me today. Happy Good Friday. Happy Resurrection Sunday. We are not actually working on this Friday, so this is a pre-recorded episode. But because we've been so incredibly busy and I haven't been able to actually be as regular with the show as I'd really like to be, I wanted to make sure I at least had one in the can, a new episode for you today, which is Friday. And I'm really happy that we are able to do that. Everybody say hi to Christian. Say hi, Christian.
Hi, Christian.
Christian is obviously learning from JC. I mic'd up Christian today, and I told him, I said, look, I'm tired of sitting here talking to the air, and people can't hear you. So Christian will be mic'd up for today's episode. You'll actually hear what Christian sounds like. And so I'm glad to have him with us, and as he always is. He is a blessing to us for sure. So I just thought that I'd share with you something rather amusing, actually. Christian doesn't even know about this, but I actually got some hate mail in the mail. Now, it's not unusual for us to get, the trolls and the liberal hacks and whatever. As a matter of fact, those of you who listen to us frequently and regularly, you know that practically the entire law school in Willamette College takes it upon themselves to write articles about me, So what we have is a situation that's a little bit different, a little bit more amusing. This is a person. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but I am a regular contributor on Victory News. Victory News is a Christian broadcasting news program. And so they bring me on as a constitutional contributor, constitutional attorney. As a contributor, I do some other legal analyses and even some foreign policy analyses and things like that. Especially it has to do with Russia because of my military background. So again, this is a Christian broadcasting news program. And this person who sent me hate mail actually took the time to write me a letter, put a stamp on it with a return address and everything. So I'm really sort of at awe in the whole thing. I mean, seriously, what causes you to take the time to sit down, to type up a letter, to print it out and sign it? Well, maybe this isn't I think this is actually a real signature. And then copy the Victory channel in the hate letter that you're sending me. So that's curiosity number one. Curiosity number two is the subject matter of the letter, the hate letter. Let me just go ahead and read it to you. So you can see it. There's like bold letters there, like she's writing some kind of newspaper article. And then this is the regular letter format. So can they see that, or at least a little bit of it, Christian, when I hold that up there? Oh, okay. All right. So the bold thing that looks like a newspaper headline says, right-wing, quote, constitutional attorney, end quote. They always do that. They always call me a self-professed constitutional attorney or a self-described constitutional attorney, as if only I call myself a constitutional attorney. What's very interesting is this is their tactic, because in reality, that's my area of law, constitutional law. Not only that, the University of Florida, from where I got my Juris Doctor, calls me an attorney, with a specialization in constitutional law. I was the only member of my class to receive the constitutional law scholarship. Okay? So, University of Florida describes me this way. Now, I know this chaps some of your hides, but yes, the Florida bar also describes me as an attorney, and I am recognized as practicing constitutional law, which is actually a real subset of the practice of law. So it's like a doctor, a general practitioner versus a neurologist, right? So I don't do general practice. I'm a neurologist. I do just constitutional law. So the question thing is, does Miss Wanda King, does she say to her doctor that their doctor is a quote, unquote doctor? It's just a curious thing they try to do, as if to undermine my authority, as if her opinion of my authority means anything. But you understand what's happening here. And it's absolutely hilarious, okay? This is indication number one of Wanda King's ignorance, okay? Quote unquote constitutional attorney. She says right-wing constitutional attorney. KrisAnne Hall says Florida's, okay, here we go, in quotations, don't say gay bill is necessary to stop the, quote, atrocity of the LGBT in the government school system, weaponizing our children with propaganda, end quote. So it's just curious. Number one, the entire, classification as don't say gay is a total misnomer and manipulation and propaganda by the ignorant, right? Completely, totally ignorant. And then she is trying to quote me, the atrocity of the LGBT in the government school system, weaponizing our children with propaganda, is out of context as well. So she has listening comprehension problems as well. So March 30th, 2022, to KrisAnne Hall. Your statement, this is her letter now, your statement is full of misinformation. Isn't that, Christian, we have an old saying, the pot calling the kettle black. Is that now racist to say something like that?
Probably.
So I don't care. It's a long-term saying. Isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? Her entire first headline is nothing but misinformation. But I digress. Here's point number 75 of ignorance in line. Let's see, this is one sentence. In the third sentence, she has yet to say anything that is accurate. And the third sentence, she says here, public school districts are operated independently all around the country, and the federal government has nothing. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped sentence number 2. Sorry. I got ahead of myself. Your statement, she says, is full of misinformation. Sentence number 2. There is no such thing as a government school system, in quotes. For one, really? Really? Tell that to the teachers that are paid by the government. Tell that to the schools whose curriculum is dictated by the government. Tell that to the taxpayers whose taxes are involuntarily collected to pay for these schools, that these are not, quote, government school systems. Well, they're sure as heck not private. See, this is, I can't believe this. 1, 2, third sentence. There is no such thing as government school system. I'm just showing you how these people must have some kind of mental disorder to begin with, and they're just full of a bunch of ignorance that makes them arrogant in their ignorance. So anyway, she says public school districts are operated independently all around the country, and the federal government has nothing to do with them, nor do state governments. Really? Do you realize, Miss Wanda King, that the school systems we refer to as government school systems are actually established in the majority of the states through the state constitution, funded through the state treasury, collected through state taxes and local taxes, county taxes, collected involuntarily. And the federal government has nothing to do with them. Now, I could say very little to do with them. I could let her get away with that sort of subjective classification, but she actually says has nothing to do with them. I wonder what cavern Wanda King actually lives in. So it is unfair, she says, and uncruel to label the LGBT community as an atrocity. Not what I said. As a matter of fact, what I said was weaponizing our children with propaganda is an atrocity. And that's exactly what it says in her little quote that she takes out of context. So apparently she has a grammar problem, difficulty in understanding grammar. If you chose to educate yourself regarding findings of science rather than leaning on the ignorance and hatred of mysticism, you would understand that homosexuality is not a disorder and as such is not communicable or a choice. Now, I don't know where this is coming from. I never said anything to do with this whatsoever. She has now slipped off into her own reality, completely detached from anything that resembles any form of truth or reality. Okay? Given that, what would gay people have to gain by weaponizing our children with propaganda? Well, now she's completely out of touch. You know what, Christian? I should have pulled up that video on YouTube. I don't know if you can find it really quick, but here's how you find it. On YouTube, gay choir sings about educating children. That's probably the nicest way to put that. Okay, there's probably, and that might not even be how it's listed. But when you pull it up, Christian, there'll be like a whole bunch of boxes of faces that are singing. Give me a thumbs up if you're able to find that.
They sing songs for preschool?
Pardon me?
Do they sing songs for preschool?
It's specifically, let me see if I can find it on my phone. I should have pulled this up, but I didn't. It just came to me. Let's see if we can do this. You guys know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. Yes, here it is. No. Okay, a message from the gay community. Go ahead and put that in YouTube. A message from the gay community, performed by the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. All right, give me a thumbs up when you have that and you're ready to play it. Because here's what she says. Are you ready? She says, what would gay people have to gain by weaponizing our children with propaganda? When you see this video, if you haven't seen this video yet, this question is answered. So again, I don't know what cavern Wanda King is living in, but Christian says he has it. So remember the little checkbox. They're going to hear it, right, Christian? Okay, say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, go ahead and play it.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you.
You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make them wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first, I didn't get why.
So go ahead, Christian, bring me back. So what do they have to gain by weaponizing our children with propaganda? Well, there you have it in their own. We'll convert your children. We'll convert your children. Now they use words like fair and rights, but that's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're talking about at all. Because the fundamental right here in question is parental rights. The rights of parents to raise their children according to their values. It is not their job to insert values into our children, but by their own words, they will convert our children. So, agree with their conversion or not is irrelevant, okay? If you agree with how they're going to convert the children or not is absolutely irrelevant, because Wanda King's statement says they have nothing to gain by weaponizing our children with propaganda. And by their own testimony, not only do they have something to gain, it is their objective. Okay, so let's continue. The only agenda gay people have in common is to be able to live equally under the law without discrimination. There is nothing in this bill, this parental rights bill, okay? Nothing, zero, nada, zilch, null, zed. In this bill, they have erroneously and accurately named "Don't Say Gay." Nothing in this bill that creates discrimination under the law or outside the law. There is nothing in this bill that prevents any human being in the state of Florida from living equally under the law. What this bill does do is puts the education of our children regarding sexuality back into the hands of the parents for children who attend government schools. Now, if you're a regular watcher, you're a regular listener, a frequent watcher listener, then you know our perspective is that no child should be in government school. Okay? If you are putting your child in government school, then you must accept the government curriculum. Okay? We believe in liberty here. You have the liberty to be gay. Be gay. You have the liberty to not be gay. Don't be gay. You have the liberty to raise your children. You have the liberty to raise your children in your beliefs. No one else has any liberty to raise your children. You may grant them permission. And make no mistake, when you send your child, anyone who sends their child to the government school system, Wanda, I'll say it again, the government school system is granting permission to the government to raise their children. So you can't really be angry when your child is in the government school system with how the government is raising your child. If you don't like how the government is raising your child, the correct and appropriate social and legal response is to remove the government's ability to raise your child, i.e., take your child out of government school. And I hear the argument all the time, some people don't have a choice and we don't have other options. I'm sorry, this is not China. This is not Germany. This is not Russia. Every American parent has a choice. Period. I have met single mothers in New York City who have chosen to work more than one job so their child could go to a private school. It's about choices, people. It's about priorities. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for. And I know that's hard to take and it's going to make people angry, but that's the bottom line. If you believe, as I believe, that we will be eternally responsible, we will answer to God for how we have raised our children, then you must understand there's a certain level of sacrifice that has to be taken to make sure that our children are not being raised by someone else contrary to our beliefs. She says, your position is a slap in the face to the educators all around our country and especially in Florida. Really, because I wanted to understand that question because this piece of legislation, just to be clear, prevents the education of sexuality and sexual things of nature to kindergarteners, first graders, second graders. How is not feeding our children sexuality before the age of 9, how is not exposing our children to pornography in the school system before the age of 9 a slap in the face to the teachers? Are we to believe and to understand that our teachers have to teach, are insulted by the fact that they cannot teach pornography to our children under the age of 9? See, call me crazy. I don't think the government school system, and I don't think teachers, period, ought to be teaching our children about sexual things and showing them pornography. And if you think I'm exaggerating, speaking in hyperbole, by calling it pornography, then perhaps you should take some time to actually read the material, because that's exactly what it is. And so I'll just be clear to you, Miss Wanda King actually lives in California. So what we do in California, or what we do here in Florida, Miss King, is none ya. That's what we call it. None of your stinking business. Keep your ignorance in California and leave us in Florida alone. As a matter of fact, you should keep your ignorance within the four walls of your house, because I know plenty of Californians who can think, who have a good head on their shoulders, who understand the terms and conditions of liberty, and they don't want to hear your garbage either. All right, with this bill, we are starting a new reality where LGBTQ plus students may wonder if they're allowed to even acknowledge their own sexuality or gender identity. Oh, goodness gracious. I just don't understand. What is the mentality of this? A new reality where LGBTQ students may wonder if they're allowed to even acknowledge their own sexuality or gender identity. You know what? Government school, K through 12, is not the place for anyone's sexuality. Just saying, okay? I don't want heterosexual 5-year-olds expressing their sexuality. As a matter of fact, at 5, they shouldn't even be expressing sexuality. They don't even have the proper organ placement for that. Just saying. Young men. Anyway, I just thought you might be a little amused by this along with me, and it was a good teaching moment, because you know I'm a teaching moment kind of person. And then the last really curious, peculiar thing is this. Victory News is a Christian network, Christian broadcasting news network. Why is Wanda King watching Victory News and then wondering why she's hearing a Christian perspective on intimate relationships and the education of children? Why is she watching Victory News if these principles make her so angry? So pray for Wanda King. She obviously is a very tormented and confused individual. So I just don't know what exactly that means. So I want you to join me in prayer for Miss Wanda King, and then to take this teaching moment so that maybe if somebody says these things to you, there are things that you can, with truth and love and edification, respond in kind. The first lesson ought to be, number one, if you're going to criticize a piece of legislation, you really ought to read it first and not just believe and parrot the propaganda. Because Miss Wanda King is actually proving that she has been manipulated by the propaganda that she claims doesn't even exist. Christian, go ahead and play that vendetta clip for us right now.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink. I want this country to realize that we stand on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, woman, and child to understand how close we are to chaos. I want everyone to remember why they need us.
In the former United States, civil war continues to devastate the Midwest.
Scientists attribute this latest water shortage to the lack of rainfall the last 2 years. Ministry officials expect water coupon prices to rise.
Police have arrested 9 suspects.
Can you
Police
believe
are
this
responsible
shit?
for reporting avian flu
Been going on all
vaccines.
summer.
Outside the quarantine zone, a new airborne pathogen has killed 27 people.
Authorities have uncovered new evidence linking the terrorist organisation called V to the St Mary's viral attack on London 14 years ago.
I love that clip because it teaches how predictable human nature is. There was not some time travel or that made that movie. They were not psychic or prophets. But as science fiction goes, what you have are people that are in tune with human nature, knowledgeable of history, able to apply the two together. Because the mob is predictable. You see, those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. And that's why we're a teach show and not a talk show. I wanted to go into this article, Christian, the NBC News article, Biden administration unveils steps to boost equity in government. More than 90 federal agencies have released hundreds of strategies triggered by an executive order the president signed with the goal of advancing equity. So that's what's very interesting. First off, search those 90 agencies and find out which one of those is specifically authorized in the Constitution. I could give you until next week and you would find that probably, well, let's just be generous, 99% of them are not. And when we're talking about equity, I mean, seriously, advancing racial equity, it's also gender equity as well. What does that mean? Equity. Well, it doesn't mean equality under the law. Because equality under the law would mean that everyone has the same standard. Everyone has the same criteria. Equity, however, is actually inequality. Equity means that I'm going to give one person an advantage over another person based over some invented division or classification. Now, what's interesting is the Justice Department. What does this mean? Because people are going to get all freaked out about this. What does this actually mean, right? What does this mean and what are these suggestions? So let me explain to you what these suggestions are. We're going to just sort of swipe aside the understanding that these agencies are without constitutional authorization, right? So we're just going to operate as they are with themselves. The Justice Department is going to go multilingual. That's what we're doing here, the multilingual Justice Department. The DOT, the Department of Transportation, is going to make investments, and I'm reading, in underserved communities. Now, we're not really quite sure what underserved means. It is a very vague and subjective term. Underserved can be defined in many different ways, so we pretty much add or any kind of guess that, you know, what that actually means. But we're probably going to find underserved communities defined as cities, inner cities, that kind of thing. I doubt that we'll find underserved communities defined as rural areas where very little government money actually goes, which would be the true meaning of underserved. I don't know. The Department of Defense. Now, this is a curious one. This is a very curious one. The Department of Defense is going to work with historically Black colleges and universities to reduce bias in its computer algorithms. I want to repeat that because it is a very, very curious thing. The Department of Defense. Are you catching that? Not the Department of Education. The Department of Defense is going to work with historically Black colleges and universities to reduce bias in their algorithms within their computer systems. I would love for some techie person to actually explain what the heck that means. And then someone else explained to me, what is the business of the Department of Defense in historically Black colleges and universities? Why would the Department of Defense even have a role in algorithms in the computer systems of historically Black universities and colleges? Does anybody else find that extremely peculiar? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this out. But Biden says this is all part of the plan to to reduce racial and gender inequality. What else? Let's see. We're going to also see the Biden administration searching through their records to ensure that grants and funding are sent to underserved communities. So we have the Justice Department going multilingual. We have the DOT sending money to underserved communities. We have the DOD getting involved in historically Black colleges and universities. And we have the federal government as a whole giving out grants and funding money to quote unquote underserved communities. So basically, if I can just boil this down for you, this whole plan, hundreds, let me read that again. Hundreds of strategies with the goal of advancing racial and gender equity. Let me just boil this down to you. This is a plan for vote buying, right? Because the economy sucks. Under Biden, the economy is at an all-time low. People have less money and there are less things to buy. They'll talk about jobs here, jobs this, but you see the job increase numbers is all faked, right? It's always fake. Job numbers are always fake. They're always manipulated, but there's an even higher element of dishonesty and deception at this point because we're coming out of 2 years where people weren't working because of all the government shutdowns. And so now Biden's taking credit for this, even faked job increase in job numbers. And they were faked under Trump. Job numbers are faked under every presidential administration, under every single one. I think that job numbers have been faked for so long that nobody actually even knows what the real job numbers are. And the question is, could we even really know what the real job numbers are? So what we have is a situation where this administration knows the economy sucks, knows people have less money to buy less things, and there are less things available to even buy. Gas prices, which everyone needs, are through the roof. And so now, don't worry, Biden administration says, we're going to send you free money. That's what it is. This is vote buying. And in the long term, it's not just vote buying for the midterms. It's creating financial dependency, creating an entire class of people who are completely and totally financially dependent upon the federal government. Oh, but ask Wanda, she'll tell you. The federal government has nothing to do with these things, right? Now, let me just put this, because it's supposed to be making federal policies fairer, right? That's the quote from the Biden administration. Federal policies fairer. What the heck does that mean? Christian, do you know what the word fair means? I mean, what would you think the word fair? Let me ask you this. Do you think the word fair should be defined that everybody is under the same requirements and the same qualifications? Would that mean fair?
Yes.
So is fair something that would put one group of people at an advantage through law and gifting of money over another?
No.
Would that be the opposite of fair?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the very definition of unfair, wouldn't you think?
Yes.
But the Biden administration defines fair as being advantage. How ironic is that? The Biden administration says that the federal government has to create an advantage in people to overcome an advantage in people. You see, fair is everybody's under the same umbrella. Not one person gets a better chance by government money and government plan. That's the very definition of unfair. But let me boil this down to you in a way that maybe you've never heard somebody say to you. The government handing out money, investments in certain communities, money to certain people, grants and funding to certain communities. Which communities? The ones chosen by the Biden administration. We know that's vote buying, but what if you actually heard somebody say to you, it is buying votes with American hard-earned tax dollars? The work, the sweat of your brow, the sacrifice of your time, the exercise of your muscle, your will, your effort, your labor. Your blood, your sweat, your toil is being used to buy votes for people who didn't work for you, who don't work for you. They are actually taking your hard-earned money to buy themselves political favor. I wish perhaps that was something that we were able to look at a little bit more. Now, the next article that we have in our coffers here has to do with something that people keep sending me information on. The World Health Organization's International Pandemic Treaty. Now, before we go into this, KrisAnne, do you have queued up the short non-compliant trailer? Okay. Before we do that, I want KrisAnne to go ahead and play the short trailer to our documentary, Non-Compliant. Non-compliantmovie.com is where you can actually watch the entire documentary. It is a non-profit documentary, so you're welcome to watch it and share it at no cost. If you want to partner with us to help us make Non-Compliant 2, then you can make a tax-deductible donation at noncompliantmovie.com, and that will go to helping us create and finish the sequel, Non-Compliant 2, all about the sheriff. We need to get, KrisAnne, just as a little mental note, we need to get those trailers loaded up for the next show. So be tuned in next week, because next week we are going to give you the first trailers for Non-Compliant 2, the sequel, all about the sheriff. Go ahead and play that, KrisAnne.
Every period in history that involves monumental change has always begun with one person taking a stand.
When government is tyrannical, the people of God have a duty to not follow and not comply.
And I just need to know who is willing to stand.
It can't be what you do. It has to be who you are.
Can't see your hand. Welcome back. Noncompliantmovie.com. That's where you can watch the whole thing. 82 minutes of pure fact, education, and inspiration. Go to noncompliantmovie.com, watch it now at no cost, and see the thousands. Do we have thousands? I think we have thousands of 5-star reviews of this documentary. I promise you'll watch it once, you'll want to watch it again. So this article KrisAnne's putting up here is the council gives green light to start negotiations on international pandemic treaty. This was published by the European Council, the Council of the European Union, on 3 March of 2022. And there's a lot of discussion about this World Health Organization treaty, but I want to talk about the constitutionality of it. The constitutionality is that we have a situation where the Biden administration is saying we can sign a pandemic treaty with the World Health Organization without the consent of the Senate because we are members of the World Health Organization. Now, what's really interesting is if you go to libertyfirstsociety.com, libertyfirstsociety.com, we have a course on treaties. We have a course on the power of the president, 2 separate courses. These two courses will teach you why this statement by the administration is constitutionally and patently false. Okay? So number one, it is not a treaty under true supreme law of the land, constitutional standards, unless 2/3 of the Senate consent. And if you go to libertyfirstsociety.com and you watch the class on treaties, you watch the class on the power of the president, you will see why it is that way. The President of the United States under Article 2 has no authority to create unilateral agreements. The only kind of agreements that are authorized by the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, are treaties. Treaties are negotiated through the executive branch and ratified by 2/3 of the Senate. There is no such thing as a deal in the Constitution that is negotiated, rendered, or otherwise ratified by just the President of the United States. You know what I find very ironic is that the same people who run around supporting the President's authority to make unilateral deals without following the letter of the law of the Constitution are the same people that will tell you that the states don't have the authority to refuse to comply with these things that are not compliant with the Constitution, because they'll tell you, oh, well, nullification's not in the Constitution. Well, guess what? Deals are not in the Constitution either. So guess what? First and foremost, just to correct a little error, nullification is in the Constitution. It's in Article 6, Clause 2. It absolutely is. Just go ask Alexander Hamilton, go ask James Wilson, go ask Elbridge Gerry, go ask any of our founders who wrote on these things. Article 6, Clause 2 is called the Supremacy Clause. It does not make the federal government supreme, it makes the Constitution supreme, and says anything outside the Constitution is not binding on the states. That's what it says. Go read it. And a deal created outside the terms and conditions of a treaty would fall under Article 6, Clause 2 as outside the Constitution and is therefore not binding on the states. So Biden can make these deals, not legally, right? I can go steal a car, but I can't legally steal a car. Biden can make this deal, but can't legally make this deal, right? So if he makes this deal, it will be incumbent upon the state governors and the state legislators and the counties to invoke Article 6, Clause 2 and say, we're not bound by this, nor will we follow it. Let the lemmings in Washington, D.C. be subject to the WHO. The reason we remain 50 independent sovereign states is so that each state retains the authority and the duty to refuse to comply, to refuse to allow the central government to enforce laws, EOs, and deals that are not in compliance with the specific enumerations in the Constitution. So the last story I want to talk to you about today is something that came across my feed from April 14th, 2022, from the NPR. And Christian, this is the article titled, now we have two articles titled the same thing, pretty much. I want the first one from WSF, Public Media. Do you see that one? Got a picture of a guy holding a pen. All right, that's the one that I want. That's Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio.
Okay, I have it.
You got it? Is it up there?
It is up there
now. All right. So check out the date of this article, April 14th, 2022. The headline, Senators call for probe into student loan program after NPR unearthed major problems. The picture is of Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio as one of 3 lawmakers calling for changes after NPR investigation found mismanagement of income-driven repayment plans for student loans. Now, this has to do with the federal loan forgiveness program. And so it says lawmakers have called for an investigation into a troubled student loan cancellation program 2 weeks after NPR report revealed the program. Designed to help low-income borrowers and eventually offer them debt cancellation, wasn't living up to its promise. Let me just repeat this date for you. April 14th, 2022. Christian, go to the very next one titled Senate. Oh, goodness gracious.
23 senators
23 senators, yes.
demand.
23 senators. Go ahead and read the title because for some reason it didn't come up on mine.
23 senators demand investigation into mismanagement of student loan program.
What's the date on that one, Christian?
October 29th, 2019.
October what?
29th,
What year?
2019.
And 23 senators demand what?
Investigation into mismanagement of student loan program.
3 years ago, 23 senators demanded an investigation into the student loan program. What happened? What was the result? How did the investigation go? Well, apparently, it either didn't happen or it went absolutely nowhere. Because here we are 3 years later with 3 new senators demanding a new investigation of exactly the same thing. See, I hate to keep talking about this, but at libertyfirstsociety.com, I have the basic entry class for libertyfirstsociety.com is that we teach the history of the Constitution. And in that history of the Constitution, you see parallels, history repeating precisely in a very large way, in the same way it happened over 700 years, repeating today. And one of those parallels in history has to do with a king named Henry I. Henry I, just to make the long story short, because you really should go watch the class at libertyfirstsociety.com, the history of the Constitution. Henry I murders his brother to become king. It's a hunting accident, actually. So he and his brother go hunting, and his brother, William II, is killed in a mysterious hunting accident, where a stray arrow from Henry's hunting party accidentally hits William in the eye, killing him and coincidentally making Henry king. Now, Henry understands that the people are not happy about this. Now, backstory is the people hate William II. He's a wicked, evil, tyrannical king. But the people also recognize that if Henry I will murder his own brother to become king, then what will the value of the people be for him? And so Henry, realizing that the people are not happy with the suspicion around his brother's death, Henry comes to the people and he offers a consolation. He says, I will search the entire kingdom. I will do an investigation. And I will search the entire kingdom and I will find the 3 wisest men in all of our land. I will bring those 3 wise men here to my court and give them the very important responsibility of determining whether I'm, the king, at fault for the death of my brother or not. And then I always ask the class, what's wrong with that scenario? And everybody understands what's wrong with that scenario is that Henry is picking his own judge and jury. So when the three wise men that Henry picks to conduct this investigation to determine whether he's guilty for his brother's death or not come back with an innocent verdict, the people of England do not believe any of this. So, I wonder how we don't see that's no different than a congressional hearing. You see, a congressional hearing or a Senate's hearing, and the Senate hearing in this case, is the senators picking the investigators who will investigate. You remember the Senate is part of the federal government. The senators picking the investigators who will investigate whether the federal government is following the rules or not. So the federal government picking the federal investigators to investigate whether the federal government is following the federal rules. Are you freaking kidding me? This is why in 2019 you can have 23 senators demanding, or let me back this up. This is why in 2022 you can have senators demanding what 3 years ago in 2019 23 senators already demanded be done. Because the entire idea, the entire formula of a congressional hearing is an absolute farce. It is complete sham, circus, complete lie. So I just thought that was an interesting find, because I found, the fact that everybody's shocked that the federal government is misappropriating money through the loan forgiveness program. And of course, I have to add the little caveat there. Will someone please find article, section, and clause for me in the Constitution that authorizes the federal government to even give loans for education? I really want to know that one. And then show me the article, section, and clause that says the federal government can tell people they don't have to pay back the taxpayers for the money they used for their education. Call me crazy on that one. But then, when I was searching, because I always search for more than one article. When I was searching for the articles, I found out that, well, lo and behold, here we are, 3 years later. And 3 years before, this investigation allegedly already took place. And 3 years later, the misconduct is still happening. So, I just want to know what really is going on here. Inquiring minds want to know. And I hope you want to know too. So, why don't you ask your senator? Right? Ask your senator, show me article, section, and clause that allows the executive branch to hand out money for education. Show me the article, section, and clause in the Constitution that allows the executive branch to tell people they don't have to pay back money that was taken from the taxpayers. They don't have to pay back the taxpayers. And then please tell me why. 3 years after 23 senators demanded an investigation in the misappropriation of money in this entire thing, why are we having this article now, and these senators now asking for investigation as if it's never happened before? Ask your senator that question. Just a curious thing. Just more understanding of why the federal government was never even allowed to do this. Let me read to you one last thing as we go out. James Madison argued before the House of Representatives in 1792. And in this, he argued about the limited nature of the government's ability to send out money, to give out money. Now, if you want to look this up, this is James Madison's argument on February 6, 1792, before the House of Representatives regarding bounty payments for cod fisheries. And I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but it is an interesting read. You should go read it. I just want to read 2 sections for you. He says, quote, I, sir, have always conceived, and I believe those who propose the Constitution conceived, and it is still more fully known and more material to observe that those who ratified the Constitution conceived, that this is not an indefinite government deriving its powers from the general terms prefixed to a specified powers, but a limited government tied down to specified powers which explain and define the general terms. He goes on to make his argument about the limited meaning, the limited application of power of the federal government on how they are tied to specific enumerations, and that some application of general power would be completely ridiculous in light of the fact that they went out of their way to actually list the power delegated to the federal government. So, let's see. I want to read this part to you here. There are consequences, sir, still more extensive, which as they follow clearly from the doctrine combated, must either be admitted or the doctrine must be given up. Now, what is the doctrine? The argument by some in Congress is that the General Welfare Clause is actually a power. By the way, this is a class on libertyfirstsociety.com to help you understand that the General Welfare Clause is not the power of the federal government to do generally whatever they want. So if you want to actually be educated on these things, if you really want to have a well-founded, a well-based argument in fact on why all this federal spending is completely and totally unconstitutional, you have to go to libertyfirstsociety.com and take the courses. I mean, I can't do it for you here on this show. It's just not possible. These are things that take more time and more attention. And so what they were saying was, well, it says general welfare, so we should be able to spend money on whatever we want. And he says, there are consequences, sir, and still more extensive, which, as they follow clearly from the doctrine combated, must either be admitted or the doctrine must be given up. If you believe the General Welfare Clause allows the government to spend money on generally whatever they want, then you must admit the following. If Congress can apply money indefinitely to the general welfare and are the sole supreme judges of the general welfare, they may take care of religion into their own hands. They may establish teachers in every state, county, parish, and pay them out of the public treasury. They may take into their own hands the education of children, establishing in like manner curriculums throughout the Union. They may assume the provision for the poor. They may undertake the regulation of all roads other than post roads. And in short, everything from the highest object of state legislation down to the most minute object of police would be thrown under the power of Congress. For every object I have mentioned would admit the application of money and might be called, if Congress so pleased, provisions for the general welfare. And he says to advance that doctrine would be to fundamentally transform America from a limited and defined government to an absolute, at best, mixed monarchy. Learn your history. Learn your facts. Learn your Constitution and learn the meaning behind it. All of this at libertyfirstsociety.com. And when you join us at libertyfirstsociety.com, you actually partner with us to help us get education out to other people. Because you see, charity is not the government's responsibility. It is the individual's responsibility. Well, Christian, you got anything else to add today?
No, I do not.
Well, I think that's all I've got. So if Christian doesn't have anything and I don't have anything else, pray for Wanda and pray for America. But don't just pray. Put feet to your prayer. Get educated, get organized, get activated. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a blessed Resurrection Sunday, and we will see you on Monday.